Hello, everyone. I hope you're all having a wonderful day. Well, I'm going to make an Easter card in this video, a Slimline Easter card, using some new products from Spellbinders. I have a couple of their sets here. This first Easter egg set is called Forever Spring Egg Etched Dies. And then these word dies come from the expressions of spring sentiments, and they just say Happy Spring or Happy Easter. And I just love the delicate font on these. The Easter eggs are so ornate and gorgeous. I just was so excited to play with these. I'm going to show you some of their cardstock as well that I'm going to be using for this card. This first one is called Rustic Rose, Banana Cream, Limeade Splash, and I don't end up using the green, Lavender Fusion, and then a specialty paper. I picked this up because it was on sale, but I'll show you that in just a moment. It's just gorgeous. So these are the papers I'm going to be using. I'm going to cut out my eggs with the rose and the lavender first. I'm also using their new tape. I was just intrigued by this. I had to try it out. It's called Best Ever Craft Tape. And from what little I've used it, I am really loving this stuff. It's so thin. And at first I thought it was going to be a little too tacky, but it's not. It doesn't rip your paper. I do go slow with it when I pull off the dies, but I'm loving this stuff. Okay, to get the little bits out of the die cuts, I'm using my all-in-one tool, and I'm just scraping it back and forth, and they pop out really easily. I don't know what I would do without this tool. For the longest time, I didn't have anything like this, and now that I have one, I don't know what I did without it. They're just so helpful. I'll do the same with this. I'm just going to gently scrape out the innards of this die cut. Look how beautiful these die cuts are. And then the really tough ones I can poke out with the pokey end. This set does come with a die that cuts out the Easter eggs, and I'm going to be doing that for both of these. I'll tape this in place so it doesn't shift when I run it through my die cutting machine. I'm just trying to line it up perfectly. And then I can just run it through my die cut machine. Here it is, all cut out. It's just beautiful. Isn't that pretty? I'll do the same for my second Easter egg. I'm really loving using their cardstock too. It's kind of different from the cardstock that comes in their card kits. It's a lot thicker weight, or a heavy weight. And the colors they offer are just beautiful. They had a sale recently, so I picked up a few of their colors. And here's the second egg. You could do some fun paper piecing with these. I think that would be really beautiful. But I'm just going to do something simple for this card. So let's take a peek at their specialty cardstock. It's a pack of 3. The first 2 are silver toned, and the last one's more of a white sparkle paper. It's just gorgeous. And that's what I'm going to use to put behind these Easter eggs. I tried out the other 2, but this one just was an easy winner. And it's too bad that the camera doesn't pick up the sparkle because it sure is sparkly and pretty. So I'll tape this down. I got to save as much of this paper as I can. And here are my 3 sparkly eggs. I like the shape of these eggs. These are really fun. And I'm just going to glue the die cuts flat on top of these eggs. And I'm going to leave one just white. So here is my card base. It is 3.5 by 8.5. I'm going to use this piece of banana cream cardstock. And I pulled out a Spellbinders die from one of their dies of the month. And it die cuts the most beautiful lattice out of the card. And I make it work for the Slimline. I'll show you here. So I'm going to tape it in place at the bottom. I don't want it to go off the edge, so I do leave a little bit of a border at the bottom. And I'm just trying to line this up straight and tape it down so it doesn't shift. But this was a small die of the month from 2020, and I use it a lot. Came with some pretty border dies too. Now I'm going to poke out all of the inner pieces of this. Just using my all-in-one tool again to do this. And the tape you can reuse a lot. It sure keeps its stickiness. This is great stuff so far. Okay, so let's scrape out the inner pieces of this die cut. And look how cute this little lattice shape is. So much fun. Perfect for Easter. I'm going to tape this lattice die on again, but I'm not going to go off the top of the edge because it will cut out a little bit of the edge. So I'm going over some of the lattice that has already been cut out, but that's just fine. You won't be able to tell at all. Let's tape this in place again and run it through the die cut machine. And here it is. Let's gently pull off the tape and pop out the innards of this. Okay, I'm going to set this piece aside for just a minute and do a little bit of blending, ink blending. Look how pretty that looks over the card base. But that's not going to stay white. I'm pulling out some Distress Oxide inks. This one is Milled Lavender. And these two Distress Oxide inks match perfectly with the cardstock I'm using. And then I'm going to switch it to Victorian Velvet at the top. Just do a little transition in the middle. Let me speed this up. And yeah, it just matches perfectly with the Dusty Rose cardstock and the Lavender Fusion. And I don't need a perfect blend because most of it's going to be covered up, but I just want to get a lot of color down. Next, I'm going to start gluing on the die cuts onto the sparkle paper, and I'm using their new glue. I like trying out new products. It's so fun, especially when it has a great price point. This is called Barely Art Precision Craft Glue, and it has a very fine tip to it. I'm just putting little dots behind this die cut and then attaching it to the specialty sparkle paper. I'll set that aside and work on the second egg. I do put an acrylic block on top of it just to hold it down while it dries. And again, I'm not gluing every little inch of this die cut, just little daubs here and there. Attach the sparkle paper. And I'll set this one aside to dry as well. I wanted my scripty sentiment to have a little more sturdiness to it, so I'm gluing 3 of them together. I cut it out 3 times with 110-pound cardstock, and I'm just going to glue them together. It makes it into sort of a chipboard sticker, but it just gives it a little more substance on the front of your card. Spellbinders recently came out with some more word dies for Valentine's Day called Expressions of Love. And I have those on my want list. They had a really beautiful font too. So I'm just pinching the ends, making sure they are stacked nicely. And now let's attach the banana cream cardstock onto the card base. I'll use some more liquid glue for this. And I'm not using a lot, just a little skiff. This would look pretty popped up with foam tape too. And then I wasn't sure if I wanted to keep the word dies white, but they just weren't popping enough off the front of the card. So I'm going to come in with more of the same Distress Oxide ink to add a little bit of color to them. Now let's put this card together. I'm going to put the Easter eggs down flat as well. And I'll have the plain egg in the center, and that's going to be the focal point for my sentiment. And they're all going to be just a little tilted. So Easter isn't until April 4th, and so I'm really way ahead on my Easter cards this year. I had so much fun putting this card together. I love how it turned out. And now for the word die cuts. I'll glue these down and then I put an acrylic block over them just to let them dry flat. I'm also going to put a few enamel dots across this panel, and it took me a long time to figure out which ones to use. I didn't want it to be too cutesy, but yet I wanted it to be fun and bright and springy. So I settled on some iridescent beads, and they're fun because they pick up the colors of the card. They are very subtle, but very pretty. And that's all there is to this card. No coloring or anything, just die cuts and a little bit of ink. As always, I'll have the links listed below to the products that I used. Thanks for spending a little bit of time with me today. I hope I gave you some fun inspiration. And here's a close-up look at the finished card. I'm trying to turn it so you can see the sparkle on that specialty paper. I hope you all have a wonderful crafty day. Bye!